Will you pray with me? Gracious and mighty God, we give you thanks for the gift of your word, for the opportunity to come together to interpret your word. Be with us now during this time of reflection. Guide and direct us, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together will be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. You can tell the world how mean your pastor is, because he made you sit and listen to almost a whole book of the Bible. There was like 2 verses I didn't make Bob read. Wow. Rick, can you turn me down a little bit? I'm getting feedback. Thank you. I bet I know what's going on. Gotta get those speakers moved. Meanwhile, back at the sermon, like I know where I was at this point. So I made you read this whole big book of the Bible. Almost too many words to process. But this book of the Bible is one of those, how do I say it? It seems like it's either I love this book or I don't know what to do with this book. And there's almost no in between. There's almost no lukewarm when it comes to Philemon or Philemon, depending on where you're from. Oh, you're from Chicago. Well, then it's, I can't do it. I can't do it in a Chicago accent. I'm going to try to roll it up in my nose and play with you, Alice, but it's just not there today. And that's okay. I have too many words to say. We'll keep going. So, this book, this story, this letter, I can't count the times I've scratched my head and said, why is this in the Bible? Anybody else ever had that moment where, I mean, you just heard the whole book, basically. And to ask, why did this make the cut? What does this book have to say that the others don't? What does this book offer us that is new? And most of all, who's it really about? Now, scholars love that question, no surprise. And they love it because the number one question that you approach a letter or an epistle with is, was this a private letter? Or was this meant to be read in church? Now, all those greetings, all those names that Bob had to go through, those are all folks that we also find in Colossians. So what we know is this is a house church, most likely in Colossus, most likely in that area, most likely a group of Christians that Paul was, not most likely, a group of Christians that Paul was really, really fond of. And you need to play with the names for a minute. Philemon, which is the root of a word that means beloved brother in essence, or could be, if you're up on your New Testament Greek, beloved ones. So it might be a letter to the whole church, or it might be an individual that just happens to have one of those names. Onesimus means useful. So, right there in the text, do you remember the story? Do you remember when he said he had been useless, but he has become useful? That's a play on words that if you're reading in the original language, you see his name come up. If you're reading in the Greek, you see it say he had become different, but then he became himself, in essence, if you're looking at the words. And Paul, how do I say this? I wrote this 5 different ways, and I'm really having trouble deciding. Paul, to the older the commentary, gets glowed about in this letter as masterfully tactful. Now, I want you to, in your mind, re-experience this letter Bob just read one more time. Phrases like, I'm writing to you as an old man. And I could remind you, you owe your life to me, but I know you're going to make the right choice. Now, if that's not tact, I don't know what is. That was sarcasm. You're allowed to chuckle a little. Yeah, no, that was sarcasm. Let me put up the sarcasm sign. And as the commentaries get newer, they still kind of use the word tact, but they bury it in the text a little bit. So as you're reading about this letter, they suddenly start to say things like, you know, Paul didn't actually out and out order Philemon to welcome Onesimus as a brother, but he kind of did. But he kind of did it sideways. Some folks see that as tactful. I'm not telling you, you do what you want. But here's what I want you to do. I don't know if you've had anybody in your life that does that to you. I don't know if you've ever been approached by someone that says, now, you do what you want, but I was in a conversation over lunch many, many years ago with a gentleman, and I had set out a qualifying statement that honestly I don't remember. And I said, but, and was ready to make my next statement. And Wayne interrupted me and said, so I can ignore everything you said before now. And I went, wait, what? He said, you said but, which means you're ignoring everything you just said. That was a wake-up call. I mean, he's not wrong. When we lay out a proposition or a principle and then follow it with the word but and continue, we have said, everything prior to this doesn't matter to me. Now I'm going to tell you what I really want / believe. If we're being really, really honest with ourselves, we probably don't use the word, but we do that to God, don't we? God, I know you're going to do what you want to do. I believe in your power to do what you need to do. But God, if you could just see it my way. Right? If you could just join with me on this one time. I know I'm called to follow and join with you. Get in step with what you want to do, God. But just this once. Do it for me, God. And Paul's kind of playing that same do it for me card with Philemon, isn't he? He's playing the... And what's he asking him to do? Let's just make sure we're all on the same page on this. What is he ultimately asking him to do? Because it's tricky, right? He's asking Philemon to accept Onesimus back, who is probably, we don't know this for sure, but all the context points to, he's a runaway slave that has somehow encountered Paul while Paul's in prison and has become a Christian. Now, I've had friends that are both policemen and parole officers, and they all tell me the same thing. It's amazing how many prisoners find Jesus, especially the closer they get to their parole hearing. That really doesn't apply for the time in which this took place, but I couldn't not have it in there because it just makes me jump. So Paul encounters Onesimus, converts him to Christianity, sends him back, which is the legal and right thing to do. But he sends him back with a note that basically says, you need to accept him, but then send him on back to me. Because I can use your slave. I mean, that's the subtle manipulation that's going on in the midst of this letter. But because you're a good Christian, and I know you're a good Christian, don't beat him or have him arrested or have him killed. Just send him to me. I'll make sure that he's a good boy. That's all the subtext that's going on here. So when I read old commentaries and they tell me that Paul is a master of tact, I go, I would say master of manipulation, thanks. Let's try putting this on its ear just a little bit. Suppose this was a letter that you received. It began in the greetings and salutations, I, Jesus of Nazareth, a servant of the living God, write to you, insert name here, and I ask you these things. You have spent your life a slave to earnings, a slave to prestige, a slave to position. You have spent your life a slave to other people's perceptions. You have spent your life a slave to a binary identity system that excludes people, whether it be by race or gender identity or who they love or what they perceive themselves to be. And I, Jesus Christ, am saying, I gave you life. And all I'm asking you to do is to see these others as ones who God created exactly the way God wanted them to be. Do it for me. Well, that wasn't manipulative at all. Except it was a basic paraphrase of the whole letter I just told you was manipulative. But when we put it in the role of Jesus, it's hard to be mean, right? Church, Christ is calling you to be Christ's presence to someone that feels not in, that feels enslaved. Maybe they're enslaved to their own addiction to alcohol or drugs. Maybe they're enslaved to their life situation. Maybe they're enslaved to what the community has said to them. Maybe they're enslaved to a perception of a church that told them, you aren't eligible for the kingdom of God. And you are the one with the mighty pen, able to write the letter that sets that person's soul free. You are the opportunity that says, God loves you exactly the way you are. And you are welcome in the kingdom of God. Church, this letter from Paul to Philemon, whether it was meant to be read to a whole church or meant to be an individual, intimate letter saying, please do this, is a reminder to all of us that as believers in the living God and the presence that was revealed to us in Jesus Christ, we are called to not enslave people, but to set them free from the bondage that our society has created for them. It may be someone else, or it may be you that needs to be set free. In the name of Christ, be free. Amen.